Is it okay to start? Okay. I would like to start by asking people to come as close as you can, so that way we can. I don't have to yell, and we can talk a little bit more personally about this aspect of game development. First, I'd like to mention that I'm passing around this thing called a rule chart, kind of help you guys decide if game design is something that you guys would be interested in. I'm going to talk about game design from the student perspective. I am not an industry expert. I have not worked out in the world, but a lot of my instructors come from the industry, and they have talked to me and basically passed down all their wisdom and helped me understand what I've gotten myself into. This presentation will go further into the depth of what game design is specifically. Make sure that this is something that you guys will be interested in. It's a very tough decision. So we will discuss that. Go ahead, next slide. All right, my name is Robbie.
My name is Barney.
And my major is game design. I started in 2016. During my free time, I like to play my guitar and explore San Francisco.
My major is also game design, and I started half a year ago, and I'll be a stagehand during this presentation.
Okay, next. We are not public speakers. I would like you to let us know if you have any questions or if you cannot hear me. Part of the reason why I'm doing this is to get better about being in front of people. Part of an aspect of being game design is our ability to pitch our games to people to get funding for our projects and those kinds of things. So, also, please let me know if I'm doing a terrible job. All right. Welcome to the Academy of Art. We're going to talk about on this slide about some reasons why we chose this school. First, I'd like to start with the instructors. Their experiences from the industry, all of them have experience working from places like Blizzard, Sony, Insomniac. Some of the popular games that you might have heard of is WoW, Tomb Raider, Soul Reaver. It's not as popular, but it's one of my favorites. And also the other aspect is inspired students. A lot of the students here, you can see the artwork on the walls. The stuff that they have made is pinnacles of their highest achievements, their best work. And when we come to these schools and we're surrounded by these kinds of students, it's inspiring for us also to perform at our best and try to get these spotlight opportunities. Another aspect is the latest technology. As you can see, these computers are pretty top of the line. The VR headsets and the computers and laptops that we have available to the students, we have every kind of machine, every kind of console. There's also talks that eventually in one of these rooms, this TV room or the other one, at the other side of the hall is going to have a cubby situation of a bunch of different consoles on display, which is really cool to kind of see the older generations and the current ones. And then lastly, the reason why we choose the Academy of Art is the networking opportunities. There's constantly, I would say at least on a monthly basis, some sort of thing to go to get our names out there and make our names known, so that when opportunities come to these people, they also pass that on to us. We make meaningful connections, and we learn how to put out our skills into the world, so that way we are referred when job openings come up. And if we want to be, I don't know, if a game design role opens up for me, I would hope that one of the friends that I've made here would recommend me, and that's very much a strong point for networking. Specifically is GDC. Does anybody here know what GDC is or has heard about it?
Game Developers Conference?
Yes. Okay, so GDC does stand for Game Developers Conference. It is an event that happens about 10 minutes from this building. People from all over the world come here. I've met some people from Russia and Germany, Sweden, China. I've met so many different kinds of people at this event. It's a huge mixing pot of people who are into developing games, not specifically game design, but all roles of game development. And so basically this event is a huge networking opportunity, and it's a place to talk about the games and the projects that we're working on, but it's also a place for companies to come to recruit people for internships and job openings. So GDC, also, because we are students here, we get huge discounts if we, and early access to purchasing the tickets. By default, the tickets range from like $700 to over like $1,200 just for one person. But because we are students here, they're as low as we'd get them really early, it's like $100, $150. It's really cheap. But the opportunities there are huge. We have companies like Amazon, Facebook, Google, NVIDIA. I think I said Amazon already. A lot of huge companies are there, and Insomniac, Ubisoft, Sony, all of them are there in huge booths. And then there's also indie developers, smaller companies looking for anything. There's always a job opportunity there, just as long as you can put in the skill and build your portfolio to apply. You gotta get yourself out there. Next slide. So in this slide, we're going to ask you guys a little bit about you and what you're interested in, and basically what your understanding is. Currently, what is your favorite game right now?
Currently, I'm playing Hyrule Warriors right now. It's the most recent game I played this past week. I will say that one of the things that I found the most challenging, but also made it like kind of fun for me, was you have to manage like the different missions for the specific characters that are in your party, and you also got to keep an eye on like the NPC captains.
Okay.
Because if when one of them goes down, then you got a whole new slew of enemies to deal with.
What do you like about it?
Well, for me, I kind of like the fast-paced action of it, and I will say there is something kind of cathartic about charging my way through a horde of enemies, especially
Right.
if, let's say, I had a really bad day.
That can be really
And I'm like,
rewarding,
okay,
yeah.
I'm taking this out on hordes of adorably incompetent enemies.
Okay. What's your favorite genre right now?
Well, I'm playing Mega Man 11, so
Okay.
just going back to like that old school kind of like boss level feel.
Okay. What is a game that somebody has played today? Anybody? Just throw one out.
Any game?
Any game.
World of Warcraft.
Okay. There you go. All right. So, what are some thoughts that you guys have about what game design actually is currently?
Well, for me, like, I kind of like want to do both. Like, I want to do the artistic side, but also want to like make my own. Because I'm majoring in cinema. I've been in for like 10 years, so I want to take like the script writing side and kind of like apply it. But I'm not like the best at artistic, but I'm not the best at like coding or anything. So.
Okay. So it sounds very much like you could be an art director, which handles a lot of game design aspects, but after many years of experience, you can kind of get boosted up to handling artistic decisions while also considering game design choices. Sounds like a lot of potential there. Okay, next slide. Before at school, I thought that game design and game development were the same thing, but they're not. Game development is this umbrella term, and then game design and 3D modeling and programming are all under this umbrella of game development. They all contribute to the development of a game. Yeah, so game design is the planning of a game. It is all the paperwork that happens before any kind of production happens. I often, artistically, I'm not great. You'll see a lot of my game design documents starting with stick figures and terrible boxes. Like I can't draw cubes very well. But it is my way of indicating like scale in certain aspects, and also part of the game design process is coming up with story and narrative and why the players are playing the game. What's the point? So we try to get some story involved in there too, and that's our job is game design. Something that you mentioned is the joy of like slashing through a bunch of innocent like critters and how rewarding that is when we've had a tough day. That is something that game designers would consciously make that a point of at the start of a project's development. They would start designing for that experience specifically. So yes, game design is not modeling or particles. If you come to school as a game designer here, they will teach you the basics of these things and kind of give you the tools so you can explore that stuff on your own. But they will focus, as game design students, they will focus you on appropriate game design methods such as visual communication, how to draw a little bit better, using Photoshop, and all of these computers provide that stuff here for you. So that is something that's really good about coming to this school. Go ahead, next slide. All right, the door problem. I've asked these two here about, well, specifically him about if he is concerned about whether a game is pretty or fun. That is how you decide what aspect of game development you are interested in. The door problem is a very similar situation. If you look at a door as if it was a game, you are going to decide whether you care about how the door looks or how it functions. Is it a pleasant experience when you open it, or is it not intuitive, like those doors that you end up pushing and then you realize that it says pull later? That's just an example of poor door design. It's also similar to poor game design. Go ahead and show the video.
Studios. Today, we want to talk to you guys about all the different roles inside a game studio. And the best way that we know to do that is through a concept called the door problem, which was thought up by a game designer called Liz England.
We asked Liz if we could make a video based on her door concept. She said yes.
You can check out her original post in the link in the description below.
I've got no problems, but a door's not one.
So first of all, let's use our imaginations to imagine a video game. And in that video game, there's a door. Whoa! We can use that door to explain what everybody in the studio does.
First of all, we've got game designers like Liz, and she has to worry about the following.
Can players open the doors?
Can players open every door in the game?
Are some doors for decoration?
How does the player know the difference?
Can doors be locked and unlocked?
Are there doors that can be opened that the players can never go through?
Do the doors lock behind the player?
Classic design problem.
Someone has to solve the door problem, and that someone is a designer.
Let's go on a journey through doors and time, and see what other problems the doors cause.
I'll put some time on the schedule for people to make doors.
I wrote a doc explaining what we need the doors to do.
I need some gorgeous paintings of doors.
I took those paintings of doors and added them to the game as a 3D object.
I took those doors and made them open and close.
I made the sounds of the doors when they open and close.
I created a theme song for the door.
When the door opens, the player will go, "Hey look, the door's open!"
I've noticed that the artist put a Starbucks logo on the door. He'll need to remove that if he doesn't want us to get sued.
I don't care about the door until it can start wearing hats.
The door can now be locked and unlocked through code.
The player can pay to open the door, or they can wait 24 hours and it will open automatically.
I tried to open the door and glitched through it. Fix it.
Do we need to give everyone those doors, or can we save them as a pre-order bonus?
I want you all to know how much I appreciate the effort that went into making those doors.
To all our fans out there, you are going to go crazy over these doors. Hashtag next gen, hashtag doors.
I let the fans know that their concerns about the doors will be fixed in an upcoming patch.
A player contacted us, confused about the doors. I told him how to use the doors.
And then, after all of that, once the game is released,
I totally did not even realize there was a door there.
So the moral of the story is,
don't put doors in your games.
because the player won't even notice them.
So, joking aside, we hope that this sort of sheds some light onto what all the different people in the studio actually do. So if you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more.
If you have any questions about anything from today's video, leave a comment.
So, it addressed a lot of different roles in game development, but specifically right now we are talking about game design for the people that just walked in. And also I think that the school only focuses on modeling, game design, programming, concept art, and I know we have an audio. We do have animation. We have audio, sound development, all those different aspects. Also, for those, did you just come in? Put your hand up, please. Anybody who came in during that video? Okay, so I'm gonna pass this back to you guys. Just check this out, and when you're done looking at it, pass it back. Pass this back to her too, please. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a photo opportunity. These are key terms that potential game design students or students at the Academy of Art in general need to be familiar with these terms. This is something that I wish I knew when I signed up for the Academy of Art. These are words I wish I was more familiar with. And so a quick Google search for these will allow for you to be more familiar. When you come in here, it will feel less exposed and make the experience feel less vulnerable or new or scary by knowing these words coming in. I'll give you guys a second to take a picture if you haven't done it already. All right, next slide. Okay, the 3 pillars of employment. This is something that I've acknowledged from the start of school here. I cannot underemphasize the value of networking, social skills, and game design. Or game design portfolio, sorry. So networking as a game designer usually entails our ability as game designers to communicate our ability, our ideas of games to other people and get them excited about that. Other roles in game development would involve, like 3D modelers would be able to communicate to other people about techniques and stuff that's involved in making 3D models. Or a programmer could also talk about techniques for programming and how to make games more optimized. But as game designers, conversations usually revolve around how to entice players and make games fun and basically throw a game idea at somebody and see if their face lights up. And by doing that, when we pique somebody's interest, that is a demonstration of successful networking. Because once we've gotten somebody interested, they see how good we are, and then they go into the world and tell people about us and hopefully give us a job through networking connections and stuff that they've made. Social skills. As a game designer, often we start with making all the decisions that a game is going to be, whether it's how the player moves, how he looks, how high he jumps, why he's doing all the things, the narrative part that I mentioned before. Very often in a team, social skills play a key part in our ability to communicate without getting frustrated or without, or just being effective in trying to convey the point about what we have in mind for the game. It's very easy to be hired, be very good at game design on paper, but then you could fail if you are not very good at communicating. Luckily, events like this, for me, push me to improve those skills, and another benefit for coming to this school. Game design portfolio. You can see these pieces on these walls right now. These are 3D modelers and prop artists and things that they have made, but these are not game design pictures. Very often in a portfolio for a game designer, you will see the thought process of a bunch of stick figures all the way up to more silhouette form shapes of characters. Eventually you may see something like this, where we can see like the shape of something and be like, okay, well that's a scientist with a coat, and very roughly we might throw some red at the bottom of the coat to indicate what you see is going on there. So that is an example of a portfolio. Is often for game designers we need to show our thought process. which is very different than a programmer or modeler or concept artist. Like, some of these are concept art, and yeah, it's very different. Okay, next slide. This is something that I also came up with starting here. It helps me maintain scope of my magnificent ideas and make sure that these ideas that I come up with are within my capabilities. So the ABCs stand for R, Basics, Crazy. And so basically what that means is the R stands for start where you are. Start with what you know. When you are coming up with this game idea, make sure that you are writing down ideas within your capabilities to do yourself. Or include the ideas of the skills that you know of the team that you're going to work for and design for that also. And then do the basics for everything else. What I mean by that is you want to go into Google and you look online and find tutorials and ask questions and get the minimum functionality achieved for this game for the things that you don't already know from earlier. And then once you've achieved the minimum functionality of the game, you can go on to going crazy and just having fun exploring new ideas and making things that you've created earlier more advanced or more specific to your imagination that you had before. So, a quote by Arnold Schwarzenegger that inspires me almost every day is, you can't climb the ladders of success with your hands in your pockets. A lot of what people think is that you come here and you just focus on your computer and you just do your work for your homework and you don't have to talk to anybody, you don't have to go to networking events, you don't have to do things like I'm doing and stand in front of you guys and trying to tell you about this. But as a demonstration of that, you do have to get up and get out and get your hands dirty and really dig in and take this very seriously. There's my contact information, another photo opportunity if you want, or you can ask me questions after this presentation. Thank you. So we're not done. We're going to do a brief demonstration about what is in Unity, which is an engine that we use to create games, to kind of demonstrate some of the stuff that we go through in creating a game and the kind of power that we have in
So how programmers communicate with designers?
Yes, we're going to demonstrate sort of the relationship between a designer and a programmer, so that way people kind of know the difference.
Yeah, I am the programmer.
He will play as the programmer. All right, we have a little script that we wrote up. Okay.
So this is Unity.
All right, so this is Unity. In this game, I need two basic functions. I want the player to move, and I want the player to shoot.
So how does the player move?
I think I would like him to use WASD controls. The keys on the keyboard, WASD, and then also maybe use the mouse to rotate the camera.
So if we want to move, we need to have at least 4 and a player. WASD to move and rotate with mouse. That's what you want?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Let's play with the sensitivity a little bit and make it a bit more faster, speed it up. Make the sensitivity more and see if we can make the look get a little bit more responsive.
Okay. So let's say double the look sensitive and make it more faster.
Okay. So what you guys can see is on the right we have fields that we're playing with. As game designers, that's usually what we would focus on, is the show them the fields behind. There we go. When we're messing with things, programmers will expose certain values so that we can change them. That way we don't have to get bogged down by the technicality of how these things function, and we can just focus on the way that the game feels, because that's what's important as a game designer. So let's make the player jump.
So how do the player jump?
Let's just press the space bar and see if we can make that work.
Okay, let's say spacebar jump.
Uh-oh. Maybe we should up the force being applied to making this character jump.
Okay. Power jump.
Whoa, that's too much.
Okay. So you adjust number.
Let's do about like maybe 10. That's pretty good. All right, that's pretty nice. You know what? Let's go a little crazy and add like a jetpack. Let's see what happens if we add one of those.
So how can we use the jetpack?
I'm thinking, like after the first space press to jump, maybe we'll press and hold the second time. And instead of a double jump, just while you're holding it, send the character into the air.
Sure, absolutely. No.
Is it working?
No. Our jetpack failed.
So typically, in a week's time, if we have issues like this, we would assign something in the next week to improve and make it work a little bit better. No, we're not fixing it. All right, so let's just move on to. All right, let's see about shooting. Let's see if we can see about like making a object appear and apply a force to send it forward. So
How to shoot?
maybe just use like left mouse click to shoot things. Oh, that's adorable.
That's what you want?
I don't know. That seems a little bit like a bowling ball. I don't know. Let's make it faster. Let's
Okay. Make it faster?
yes, let's make it. Ooh, that's too fast. Maybe like a little less than that. So what Unity does, and Unreal, and these game engines that we get to work with, is it makes it also easier to produce these effects. As you can see, it's already handling the collision for us when the ball hits the capsule and it bounces off in its own direction.
Okay.
All right.
So what does the bullet look like? How many bullets shoot per time? How fast is bullet? How fast can the gun shoot?
Let's make a shotgun. Let's do that. Let's show them a shotgun.
A shotgun?
So right now he's adjusting the amount of bullets spawning in front when you click a left click button. There you go. So now we have a shotgun. This is something that the programmer would make adjustable to the designer to alternate between the various weapons like you'd see in Fortnite or Call of Duty or any of those games.
So that's a shotgun?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Oh, do the automatic. Let's make an automatic where you hold it and it sprays.
Okay. So automatic.
Awesome.
Don't shoot faster.
No, that is okay. All right, so now let's just go through the stages, and I will explain some of the level design choices. All right, so finally, in our last segment of this presentation, we went ahead and created a brief level design example of what is like establishing scale. So right now, what you're seeing is stage 1 of, I believe there are 4 stages. Okay, yes, there's 4 stages. So stage 1, you create your character and you choose how big he's going to be in this world. And then you kind of establish the style of the world. Currently, we're going for a very plain style. We have literally a plane that we're standing on. Let's go ahead and show stage 2. Stage 2 is usually indicated by establishing player metrics, how big the player is in comparison to the other objects in the world. So if you were to go stand in a doorway, that's pretty much what you would see. That is me standing in a doorway. I just did this yesterday. And so I estimated the space between me and the rest of the door, above me and to the sides of me. And then I also created a cube as a placeholder for my scale that I can place throughout the level. Go ahead and show stage 3. Stage 3, so I've gone ahead and I created more of this house situation. And I decided that the house would be twice as tall as the player because sort of, in this case, it's about, I don't know, about me and a half. I mean, however tall I am, I'm about 6 feet. This seems to be about 4 feet above me. But yeah, so in here it's pretty close to realistic expectations of a room's design. I've also added a window in there. That is an example of creating player path. As a game designer, how do we motivate the player to move in a specific direction? By adding a window or some sort of point light at the end of on the opposite side of an entrance point into a room, you kind of grab the player's attention and make them probably want to walk towards that. So I put a window on the opposite side, kind of game design students kind of teach you, you kind of learn as a game design student here about room layout and how to intrigue players in dungeons and caves and in situations like that. Go ahead and show the back side, the stairwell, and yeah, everything. So you'll see that I have a player placeholder that I place underneath the stairs. That was for me to establish how fast the stairs need to come up